Hey everybody, I'm here today with someone you may know as raysan5, as his common online handle, the author of Raylib, and we're just going to chat a little bit about some random open source stuff. I have some questions about the history of Raylib, and some future plans and things like that, just as sort of some fun topics, and we'll see where things take us. So, Ray, maybe you want to introduce yourself and just give like a little bit of a little history and a little bit more get to know you info for everybody.
Okay, wait a
Oh,
second.
you're good.
Sorry, because I'm trying to sign up into Twitch to talk, but
Oh,
okay, never
nice.
never
Yeah.
mind.
Okay.
Because I can remember the password. I got a
Well, you
tick
can just
account, so
respond to them directly. They'll like to hear you. If there's a question you want to
okay.
cover from chat, we'll just talk about it. That's part of the fun of doing things live.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That's right. Actually, it's quite improvised, but yeah,
Yeah.
let me
Yeah.
introduce. Well, I'm Ramon Santamaria. I'm Ray. I'm the developer of Raylib. And well, a bit about me. I'm mostly video games developer for the most part of my professional life, but also been working a long time as a teacher. And actually, that was the origin of Raylib. I had to teach video games development to young art students. And after trying some tools and looking for the right tool to fit in my teaching methodology, I decided to create Raylib. And yeah, that was the origin of the library.
Yeah. Over 10 years ago now, right? I was doing some reading, and it's
10,
been
10
quite a
years and a
while.
half.
Yeah.
10 years and a half. Yeah, yeah. Actually, it's crazy because it was a weekend project. And yeah. And
And
then I started spending more time and more time. And I rent an office to keep working on Raylib. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
crazy, actually.
Yeah, so tell
But
me a little bit. I'm interested to hear sort of, you started it off as this weekend project. How did it start to become more than, well, I mean, I guess, in some ways it's a lot of weekends now. It's still like a weekends project. I understand how this goes. How did you start going from like, oh, this would be kind of nice for me to teach students to like more than what just that sort of limited scope?
well, actually, I think it was because the students, because when I created it and I started using it, I start receiving a lot of feedback from students.
Hmm.
And actually, I got a company before, a startup before, where I released a couple of games. And when I started teaching and I got some savings, I decided to keep making games. But when I start again, at that moment, Raylib already exists, and I got so much feedback from students like, hey, you think you have to review that, you got that issue, you got everything, that instead of working on the games on the studio, I was working on Raylib. Yeah, sounds crazy, but
No, no, this is like
yeah,
my audience will definitely relate. This is sort of the common joke for the Neovim crowd. I don't know how much you know sort of about some of the things that I do, but I work on Neovim, and I'm not sure
yeah,
if you're
I know,
familiar.
I know.
Yeah, but and so the common joke for us is, well, we don't actually get any work done. We're just writing more code to configure our editors. So this problem of, oops, I'm only building the library is very relatable.
Yeah, that's it. And well, I think it reached a point that the library was becoming
Hmm.
so popular that I decided to just focus on it and keep doing it. Actually, it has been quite a ride because I quit my job a couple of times to keep working on Raylib for 1 year or 6 months or a year and a half or so, then getting another job to get some saving again, then
Hmm.
quit again, and it was like whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, that's been actually the last 10 years and a half of my life. But well, during that time, I've been doing many more things because Raylib itself has grown a lot, but it has been created an ecosystem around Raylib with another auxiliary libraries and a set of tools and well, a lot of libraries and software around the product. And yeah, I just kept working in those products for the last 10 years.
Yeah. I actually was, the benefactor of one of those. I just was trying to make, not too long ago, a sort of game engine built on top of Raylib in OCaml, actually, which was sort of a fun little adventure and sort of as a toy project that we were building on stream. So definitely, like, I've noticed there's a lot of people who really love building things on top of Raylib. What do you think is sort of like the primary driving feature, I guess, that makes people like, oh, I'm going to use Raylib or I'm going to build something on top of Raylib?
I think it's a simplicity. Actually, Raylib was created to teach art students the basis of video games programming.
Mm-hmm.
I try to keep it as much simple as possible. Try to avoid object-oriented programming, just imperative programming, simple functions, avoid pointers as much as possible. So I try to keep it super simple to be able to create simple games like Pong, Arkanoid, these kind of games in just a couple of days and learn in the process and have fun in the process. And I think that was the success of the library, because it did that very well. That's it. So many people that tried the library just enjoy writing their small project, their demos, or well, whatever they want to do, just to put some graphics on the screen in a very easy way. And yeah, that's the intention of the library, and it worked very good for that purpose.
Yeah, I can say for me that was exactly the experience I had with it when I tried it, which was like I was, sort of just exploring games sort of as a fun little thing, right? And I was like, surely it can't be so hard to like put a square on the screen. Like when can I put a square on the screen? Like I've written a lot of code. Like, surely I can figure out to put a square on the screen. I'm like looking at all these libraries, and all of a sudden, I stumble onto Raylib, and it's like, oh, we'll just like start drawing on the screen. I was like, nice, that's what I'm looking for.
That's it. Actually been there also.
Yeah.
Actually been there many times in the past when I was studying. Okay, I want to draw something on the screen. It was, oh, no. Wait. First, you need to initialize that, and oh, you need to configure all the environment with the compiler, linkers, and all the libraries, and nothing works, and it's always a pain, And,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and I tried to move away from that route and create something that was easy, like just focus on writing some code and having something on the screen as fast as possible.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, at least from my limited experience with it, and I'm no game dev wizard. That's been my experience too. Do you have any like aspect of Raylib that you're really proud of, like how simple that thing is? Like maybe you've done it a bunch of times in another library, and every time you wanted to like just pick up the keyboard and just like like this but in Raylib it's easier. Do you have like any sort of particular example that you can think of?
Well, I personally like a lot. One of the first modules I created was the shapes module. I wanted just a function that say draw rectangle, draw circle, draw triangle, draw text. I wanted those direct functions that did what they say they should do.
Right.
That's it. That is it. And I'm especially proud of that. Probably I'm also very proud of text, because usually in video games managing text is always quite complex, because you need a texture atlas with all the font glyphs and everything organized, and then when you have to draw, you have to check what are you drawing and place everything and draw every character. Well, all the things. And with Raylib, I just wanted to have draw text, and you don't have to worry about the font. There is already a preloaded default font. You don't have to worry about the atlas or anything. Just draw text. I think that's one of the functions that took me quite a lot of work, and I'm quite proud of it.
Yeah, I was surprised sort of as a novice entering in to like game dev stuff that that text was supposed to be complicated. You know, Raylib's sort of like my first one, right? So I'm like draw text, and then other people are like talking about how text is hard, and I was like, but why? You know, it seems like you know you can draw a 3D world, but why are we having such a hard time putting letters on the screen? You know,
Yeah.
and so that is funny, and I agree sort of from my side. It
I'm,
was
I'm,
yeah.
I'm actually asking myself the same most of the time. What I'm trying to do something and it's, oh, come on, really? It's that difficult. I mean, sometimes it seems just so obvious, but
Yep.
it's not. And you have to do a lot of boilerplate code and
Hmm.
initialize things and configure things.
Right.
And at the end, you can do what you are trying to do, but it's wow. But at that point, it took out all the fun. I mean, it was too exhausting.
Right. Yep.
So yeah.
Do you, sort of along those lines, do you have, I've noticed, I was reading through all of sort of the change logs and patch notes for Raylib. Do you have a favorite like refactor that you've done? I've noticed, you know, over time you've
Yeah.
been able to like change, oh, we're gonna make sure all the names are the same, which is like a huge win for people trying out Raylib, right, and learning Raylib. I'm wondering if you have a favorite maybe technical refactor and maybe sort of like a sort of non-technical refactor in the history of Raylib.
Well, actually, there have been two big technical refactors, I would say. The first one was when I decided, the first version of Raylib was OpenGL 1.1,
Mm-hmm.
and it lasts for several months. And then I early noticed that if I wanted to support other platforms, I need to support multiple OpenGL versions, and that was crazy because there are many changes between versions of OpenGL, at least comparing the immediate mode of OpenGL 1.1 with the newer ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to create a abstraction layer that in a simple way you could target multiple OpenGL versions. And that was a big refactor, and I think it was a big win for the library. Actually, nowadays, it's still very relevant because as far as I know, Raylib it's one of the few libraries out there that still supports OpenGL 1.1
Wow.
from the beginning of the 90s. And yeah,
Yeah.
and that allow Raylib running in all consoles, in homebrew consoles like recently
Mm.
Dreamcast or Nintendo 64. And yeah, I was very happy with that refactor or what
Mm-hmm.
that code structure.
Yeah.
And lately there has been another big refactor also in that line that was separating one big module of Raylib into platforms. So now you can, well, you have all the platform specific code
Right.
in a single C file.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easier to manage and it's easy to improve the platforms, add new platforms, and grow the library. Actually, that was one of the biggest changes done ever in the library, and it was done in that last release in November.
Yeah, I remember reading the patch notes for that, and so you know so Neovim is written in C, so you know I'm somewhat
Yeah,
experienced, not as you know I'm not as much of a wizard I think as you are, but I've
but,
written you
but
know
it has some Lua. It has some Lua
it does.
also.
Yes, it does. Yep. So, so
Yeah.
I actually worked quite a bit on integration between C and Lua for Neovim. That was one of the things that I've done a lot of work on, as well as sort of a lot of things in the pure Lua side for Neovim as well. But one of the things Neovim did when it forked from Vim was sort of removed a lot of platform specific stuff that was in if defs and all these things, right? And tried to at least
It was the same. It was the same with Raylib. It was the
yeah.
same.
Yes. And then, you know, once you actually split them out a little bit and maybe you just if def in the function, right, completely instead of, you know, this sort of half and half and all the a lot of stuff was much simpler to reason about, which is good when you're doing complicated
Agreed.
cross-platform things. So yeah, so I definitely saw that note and I was
Absolutely.
like, oh, I bet they're excited about that one. That feels good on the maintainer side for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It was everything in a before. It was everything in a like 10,000 lines of code file, C
Yep.
file. Yeah, yeah, and it was quite difficult to manage it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But well, yeah.
Do you have sort of like a favorite release, or maybe a release where you sort of felt a big inflection point in either like Raylib, usage or popular, is there some moment where you felt, for me, one of the ones for Neovim was we had this really long period before Neovim 0.5 came out, and it was a big release because we added language server support and some other ones. And so there's a long running joke, Neovim 0.5 when, and all these other stuff, right? So there's is like, for me, that probably will always be my favorite, Neovim release. Do you have one for Raylib?
Actually, probably the best release is the last one, the 5.0 for me,
Yeah.
because it was 5 is my favorite number, actually.
Yeah.
And it was the 10 years release of the library. And,
Yeah.
and actually, I worked really, really hard on that release to make it possible the same day that Raylib 1.0 was released 10 years in the past.
Yep.
So it was like kind of perfect everything all together,
Yeah.
that it's been released exactly 10 years after first release. It's the 5.0 release, that it's my favorite number, and everything. And yeah, probably that's my favorite one. Another one could be the 2.0, because at first every release took a while, and it was 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.
Yeah.
And it took like a lot of work to reach the 2.0.
Yeah. Yeah.
But after that, I moved faster. It was like 3.5, 4.0, 4.2. So I decided to increment the versioning faster for the library with bigger changes,
Yeah. Do you have a favorite platform that Raylib has made it to?
Yeah, my favorite platform probably is the Raspberry Pi.
Nice. Just
Yeah,
because yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, it was about the time that Raylib was released, maybe a couple of years after the first release of Raylib, appeared the Raspberry Pi. And I actually am an electronic engineer, and I really like to play with circuits and electronics and and boards.
Yep.
And I got a Raspberry Pi the day one probably, and it was that device supports OpenGL ES 2.0. I think Raylib can run on that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of a personal challenge to get it working there, and I put a lot of work, and yeah, it was really nice to get Raylib running on that platform, and it's been always a platform that I really like.
Yeah. This one might be controversial, so it's okay if you don't want to answer. Do you have a favorite game built with Raylib?
Wow, that's a difficult
It's okay.
one.
It's okay. You don't
actually.
have, or you can just say one you really like. We don't have to do favorites. It's kind of like picking a favorite movie. Like, depending on what day you ask me, I'll pick a different one. But one that you really like, maybe.
Okay. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, I did an investigation to check all the games I could find in Steam made with Raylib, and there are a few of them. There are like 15 games, something like that, at the moment. And well, in itch.io there are hundreds actually. Probably the game I like the most, that actually played on my Steam Deck and I finished, is Cat and Onion.
Cat and Onion.
Cat and Onion.
Okay.
That it's I really like the style of game. It's kind of a platformer adventure with a lot of dialogue, very short. It's about an hour game.
Yeah.
And it's about a cat in a wall with a 8-bit style, and you meet a friend that it's an onion, and you go into the onion and you travel to the space. Yeah, it's yeah, but it's super nice actually. And yeah, that would be probably my favorite game. And in terms of application, probably my favorite application that I've seen being made with Raylib, it's called Cadmium, and it's kind of 8-bit system virtual console or emulator. and you can even program inside the tool, and you see the assembly, and you can execute, and it's quite impressive. So, well, but actually there are
Yeah.
lots of them.
Yeah,
I
there
mean,
are a lot. Yeah. Do you
yeah,
have
in Raylib, sorry, in Raylib Discord there is a channel made with Raylib,
Yeah.
and they are sharing lots of impressive projects almost daily.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have something that's your favorite that you've made with Raylib? You can't say Raylib or a Raylib extras. That's cheating. You have to
Okay. Yeah, sure. Actually, but I haven't been making full games with Raylib for the last 10 years, actually.
Yeah.
But I've been making tools, and
Mhm.
I've been releasing tools made with Raylib.
Mhm.
And actually, one of my favorite tools, it's one I released yesterday,
Oh,
actually.
nice.
Yeah, it's called Air Image Shield, and it's a tool to embed messages inside images.
Mm.
You know, with steganography,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
pick up a message and you split it in bits, and
Yep.
then you distribute the bits in the pixels of the image,
Yeah.
and you can save the image and
Yeah.
recover the image with the message. And yeah,
Yeah.
it took me a lot of work, because it was quite technical, and well, it took me a lot of work, but yeah, I'm really proud of that tool, and
Yeah.
I really enjoyed creating it.
I was just laughing because someone in chat said as soon as I asked, he's gonna say a Raylib tool, and then immediately afterwards.
Oh, yeah, I see it. I see it. Yeah, it's.
Oh, so that's pretty funny. I think another sort of fun question along those lines is, what point did you sort of understand that Raylib was not that you wanted to, make it more, but that it really was bigger than just like an educational sort of library that you would use for teaching?
Um, do you mean that it has been used to, or you think that in general what I've seen?
I'm saying like when did you get that feeling that like you saw something,
Ah,
out in the wild or whatever it was? I mean, you said, wow, my project's actually really big.
well, actually, probably one of the most impressive applications I saw, it was for racing motorbikes.
Mm.
I think it was in some university in Italy, maybe Torino, I'm not sure right now, that they kind of organize motor races, and the motorbikes are electric motorbikes, and well, they build the motorbikes, and they compete, and anything, and they had a display that it was they were using Raylib to show, the electric cells, the charge of the electric cells, and
Hmm.
the velocity and the speed, and everything. And it was kind of the display in the motorbike, and they sent me a video with the motorbike and the display and everything working, and it was kind of, wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. uh, yeah, that was probably one of the most impressive projects I saw.
Yeah.
Most impressive applications of Raylib outside of pure education.
Yeah. When did you see that? Was that recent or was that a little while ago?
No, that was like maybe 5, 6 years ago,
Oh,
something
wow.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, but now I'm seeing a lot of projects every day using the library for simulation, for, like, how you call that, the chemical
Oh,
molecules,
mm-hmm. Yeah, like a
to
chemical
viewers,
simulation or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
chemicals, viewers
Yeah.
for chemicals, and that. So yeah, I think it has been progressive,
Yeah.
seeing how the library was using, not only in education but outside education, by a lot of people in a lot of places. And yeah, it was kind of impressive how what places really reach.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Raylib's reach, do you have any sort of like what's on your roadmap for Raylib? Do you have any big plans? You don't have to. It's these. And by the way, to people watching this later, these aren't promises. These are just plans. Just that's what I always tell people. I'm not making any promises. I just have some plans.
Well, actually, the plans is try to survive. Actually, that's
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
the plan number one. It's I'm very careful with the plans because I'm still working alone. Well, I got a lot of contributors for the project that are great and are doing amazing things. Actually, last release was not possible without it would have been possible without contributors. But at the end of the day, I'm mostly the only maintainer of the library, and wow, that's a lot of work because you have to care for the issues, review the PR, make sure that everything that gets integrated works. But not only that, the worst part is that most of the time you have to get the ownership of the PRs or the parts that you integrate into the library. And it takes a lot of work actually because you have to review the code, understand it, and maintain it
Yeah.
at the long term. So that's the priority for the library. It's stability and bug fixing. Actually, at the moment, for the last 3 months, I've been working in the university, actually teaching Unity.
Yeah. That's funny. Do
Yeah,
they know,
it's
do your
very-
students know who you are when you teach in Unity?
But well, okay, never mind. The point is that uh, the issues in Raylib start accumulating. Now
Yeah.
I have like 25 issues or something like that, and about 10 PRs to review.
Yep.
And wow, that's a lot of work. And it's already stressful. It's like, wow, there is a lot of work in there. Um, but well, beside that, for the future of the library, in the last few months, I've been receiving a lot of PRs and a lot of views from the homebrew community to support all consoles. You
Yeah.
know, Dreamcast, even Nintendo 64, PS Vita, and some other old consoles. And maybe I will explore a bit that path in the future, but not sure. In any case, the priority is always stability for current platforms, and as far as possible, avoid growing too much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that this is something that worked really well for the last 10 years, that
Yep.
it's keeping it as self-contained as possible and not explode in a way that it won't be possible to control for me.
Yeah, I think one thing people, especially on the outside looking into open source projects, don't understand how important it is to say no to certain features or to certain changes or to certain, and you got to be able, and that's one of the things that keeps, Raylib simple, right? Is that it doesn't do everything that everyone who's ever used Raylib can imagine, right? I'm sure you get a lot of PRs and issues where sort of you have to say, well, pump the brakes. Like, we're Raylib here. This is a different game than maybe what you're expecting.
Actually, when I created the project and I made open source, actually it was probably the first open source project I did in my life at that
Yeah.
time. And my idea was completely different than what I found in the long term for open source. My idea was, okay, I'm gonna make this, and I'm going to be very, very careful with the code, with the comments, with everything, so everybody will be able to read the code and modify the code for their needs. So no need to have everything in there, and no need. I mean, it's another tool that it's recommended to be linked statically,
Yep.
but not only that, it's recommended to be added to your project. And so you modify it and you improve it and you redesign it if required. as you need for your project. And then if you want, later on, you contribute back or not. That was a bit the idea of the project since the beginning. But then it started growing, and it was like, okay, people start asking for features and start asking for integrating more and more things. Today, even it has PBR rendering, physical-based rendering for photorealistic rendering, well, high-quality rendering and everything. But it was like, okay, I added a lot of those things.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, actually, some years ago, I did a study, a market study, and I analyzed like 200 repos on GitHub, open source repos, and I created a small tool to analyze all the C code in those repos, how many Raylib functions were used, and how many times were used those functions. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
and you know what I found out.
People like rectangles, people like triangles, people like circles, and that's what they really need.
That's it. That's how, I mean, right now, Raylib has 5,000, no, 5,000, no, sorry, 550 functions, more or less. And Raylib 1.0 had 80 functions. 80 functions. You know what I found? I found that most of the repos out there were using just a bunch of those 80 functions.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, yeah, maybe some repo is using some more advanced function or anything, but most users don't need those advanced features. Don't use those advanced features.
Yeah, I can totally relate. This is a really common problem, especially for projects with, shall we say, limited budget, both in hours and, you know, in engineers, right? Where it's sort of like, it's not possible for us to have 10,000 other things to manage. We got to kind of just like do the stuff that's the most bang for the buck. And particularly, I think for something like Raylib, like it seems to me, a lot of the niche is the simplicity, right? That's one of the things you had mentioned. And so, well, if we add everything, it's not simple anymore.
It's true. Yeah, but you know what's the reality is that adding features is fun. You know, at the end of the day, it's an open source project,
right.
And if you're working on it, the funny part, the enjoyment comes from adding features and that. Doing the maintenance, it feels like a job. I mean, it's not. It's not. I mean, a job can be enjoyable also. I mean, but fixing bugs all day, it's not enjoyable because it takes time. Sometimes you don't understand the root of the issue, and you have to do tests. And some bugs could take weeks, months, or even years to fix. Well, you know that.
Yep.
So, and that's not the funny part of the development. So probably that's the reason why along the years Raylib kept growing and improving and adding more things, because at the end of the day it was the funny part. But I always try to keep it contained.
Right. It's not that every new feature is bad. It's just that they have to be sort of like thought about in the scheme and the scope, and sometimes, you know, massaged a little bit to fit. Oh, actually, if we cut 10% of this feature and we can still have 90% of it, and it's only, you know, 20% of the work, right? There's all this. It's very difficult to sort of gauge the long tail of bugs that can happen from, you know, so you sort of have all these sort of things that you're trying to balance, which I totally understand. Speaking of of maintenance of Raylib, are you currently, it sounds like you're currently working on Raylib mostly. Well, you're sometimes teaching at uni, but like you're also working on it quite a bit. Is there any way that people can, you know, help you work on Raylib more?
Yeah, people can sponsor the project with some donation. Actually, I got set up GitHub sponsors where I already have some sponsors, and I also have Patreon, Coffee, PayPal. I got several platforms to support the project, actually.
Nice.
And yeah, I would love to be able to work full time on the project instead of teaching Unity.
Oh, I do love the teaching Unity. That is too good. For people watching this video later, I will have those links in the description of this video of how you can support Raylib. If you're using Raylib and liking it a lot, it's really not, it's not required, but it's sure helpful to be able to contribute to Raylib and help more things happen there, and to help things staying simple. I think people really underestimate how much work and effort it is to keep something small that's popular. It's really easy to accidentally let design by committee come in, and now you've got a spaghetti sort of mess of all these other things. So I just wanted to at least make sure, we still talk for a while, but I wanted to at least make sure we mentioned a way that people can contribute to you. So yeah, so I think one thing that's kind of interesting for me on sort of the Raylib front is that I've seen, I believe it was mentioned while I was reading through, there's a few languages that sort of like officially support Raylib, like Odin is one of them, I think.
Well, actually, they are not officially supported by me, but the creators of those languages integrated somewhat Raylib into the language as external modules or packages or just bindings maintained by the creator of the languages. I think it's the case for two languages that are Odin and Seek.
Okay.
And yeah, actually, the game that I was mentioning before, Cat and Onion, it's programmed in Odin. Actually.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, it's made in Odin. Yeah, and I think those are the two languages that officially support or somewhat integrate Raylib.
Yeah. Very cool. Do you ever get, do you ever like talk to any of the people who are sort of maintaining those about interesting,
Yeah. Actually, I know Bill. That is the creator
Ginger Bill.
Of Odin.
He shows up on Twitch
I met
sometimes.
Him in Seattle some years ago in the Handmade Network, Handmade Network event that was in Seattle, and yeah, we met there, and actually we were, well, actually Odin was still in development at that moment, and really was added as a package later on. But yeah, we met in person, and we were talking about Raylib and Odin and development. Yeah, it was nice.
Very cool.
And I don't know Andrew. I don't know if I have met Andrew, but I don't think so. I don't think so. That is the creator of Seek.
Right. Very cool. I have a few other questions, I think, from, let me just double check on where I had these in my history over here, because this was a fun one. What has been the most difficult graphics API to work with? And was it Apple Metal? That's what someone was asking.
Well, actually, I can't say much because the graphics API that I worked the most has been only OpenGL. I checked Vulkan, and it was too much because at some point I tried to add a backend for Raylib for Vulkan, but it was too verbose and too complex. I didn't finish it, and yeah, that's it. Those are the mostly OpenGL is the one that I use the most. But inside OpenGL, the version that I enjoyed the most is I like the most is the ES 2.0, because it felt to me like quite complete. I mean, it was similar to OpenGL 3.3, but simple in some things. But well, at the end of the day, it's everything OpenGL, so not that much difference.
Yeah. Speaking of things you liked, are there any sort of other open source projects that you really look up to or enjoy?
Yeah, there are lots of them. Actually, if you check the projects I follow on GitHub, I follow many of them. I follow Sokol. so-called headers. I follow STB libraries, STB single file header only
Yep.
libraries. I actually use some in Raylib. I follow Mini Audio. I follow BGFX, I think it's the name, that it's also a graphics library with multiple backends. What else I follow? I follow Odin, I follow Seek. I don't know. I follow SDL actually also.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the additions of Raylib 5.0 was an SDL backend. I added support for SDL backend. It's also a library that I followed a long time. Oh, I also follow Monogame because Raylib was very, very inspired by XNA.
Yeah.
And Monogame, it's like the successor of XNA. I follow FNA also. Oh, yeah. I follow a bunch of projects, yeah.
Yeah. I think, do you have any sort of that you really look up to in sort of like the, I don't know, sort of style of management or goals or anything? Or like, each of those projects you listed are very interested sort of technically from where you're at. But I'm just interested sort of from like a maintainer side, if there's a project like, oh, I love how they've done, X, Y, and Z in this project.
Well, I don't know if that counts for that, but I really like what they are doing with Godot. I follow the project, and it's kind of a reference for me of things doing really good, and yeah, it's a project that actually I admire. I mean, it's very different, and I think it's very different than Raylib, because Raylib is more code focused and low level, while Godot it's more competing with the big boys. But well, it's an amazing project. That's the reality, and I mean everything all together. They set up a foundation with everything, and they're trying to find some financial ways for the project. They are a quite big team. They are very organized, I think. So yeah, it's a project that I admire actually. Yeah, actually some days ago I met Emil, that I think is the executive producer of the Godot Open Source Foundation, and yeah, and we were talking about that.
Yeah. My chat will be very upset if I don't ask you. They want to know what editor you use and what program, what operating system. They're going to be upset if I don't ask. So,
well, actually, I don't use Neovim.
Well, that's okay. That's okay.
That was but the editor that I use the most, it's Notepad++, actually.
Nice.
I'm a super fan of Notepad++, and actually I tried to change to other editors. I tried Sublime Text. I tried Visual Studio Code. For the big projects I develop, I use Visual Studio actually.
Yeah.
But at the end, I always have my Notepad++ open all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm doing a project that I'm using Visual Studio, but I always keep Notepad++ open. I'm so used to it. And actually, I use a light style, so a light theme.
Oh, light theme enjoyer as well. Chat's gonna really like this. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I for example, for Visual Studio, I use the dark theme.
Yeah.
But with Notepad, I'm so used to it that even I try to change the theme to some kind of dark theme, Obsidian or something like that. And at the end of the day, I keep returning to the base Notepad++ with the light theme. Yeah. I don't know. It's too many years working with that.
Well, chat wanted me to also let you know, usually when we say VS around here, I make sure to bleep it out, so. So next time you're going to say it, let me know, and I'll make sure we give it the VS instead.
Wow.
No, that's very cool. I have fond memories of Notepad++ in my electrical engineering labs. You know, doing some old VHDL and some other things like this as I was writing them when I was went back in college. So it's a reminiscing of a different time in my life. But that's very cool. And you know, of course, now that we're friends, anytime you want to switch to Neovim, you've got someone you can call to answer your questions. You know, so you got the Neovim helpline right here.
Nice.
No, I had to ask. Chat was going to be very upset if I didn't find out about the editor situation.
Yeah, actually, I must say that some time ago I created my own.
Oh,
'Cause-
very cool. With Raylib?
yeah, with Raylib.
Nice.
Yeah. And I haven't published it yet because it's not ready yet. Because I got some problems with the undo redo for big for large piece of code of text. But yeah, actually, it was super enjoyable working on an editor.
Did
or a
you
text editor.
do you have a name for it? If you don't, I'd suggest
Yeah,
Notepad+++.
it was called, like all my tools usually have a simple name that it's an R with the name, and it was R text editor actually.
Nice. Oh, nice. That's a pretty good one though. But I'm just saying, Notepad+++. If you needed another. No, that's really cool. That's on my to-do list at some point to make sort of like a hobbyist one. It would be fun to sort of explore. I've done obviously a lot of work with text editors, but a lot of things were already done by the time I sort of started exploring inside Neovim. So yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. When you mentioned you sometimes use Visual Studio, is that primarily for like stepping through and debugging, or do you use like GDB, or what's your normal like debug workflow for Raylib things?
Usually I use Visual Studio a lot lately because for tools development, because I've been developing tools also for the last 5 years or so, all made with Raylib. And one thing that worked very well for me is that all my tools use my own UI library that it's called RayGui, GUI.
Yep.
And Visual Studio worked really good for me because now they added in latest version they added a hot reloading option.
Oh.
And I'm able to have my application open in one screen or in one display, and then I can keep tweaking the UI if I have to tweak elements. Like the rectangles for the buttons and everything. And I keep tweaking the code, and I use a hot reloading, and I can see everything updated. And actually, it works super good for me.
Yeah,
Visual Studio, I use it mostly for the debugger. Actually.
Yeah. Chat wants to know how often you use printf debugging. That's sort of a constant debate, you know, in the online world.
Well, for the first 6 years of Raylib or so, everything was done with printf only.
There you go, chat. That's what they wanted to hear. That's what they wanted to hear.
So, imagine Raylib on Android, on Raspberry Pi, on web, only with printfs. I mean, I cannot explain how hard could that be at some moments.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah, there are, I think, for the types of applications you're generally making and the libraries you're making, I think probably a proper debugging setup is very valuable, especially all the cross-platform and all these other kinds of problems. But yeah, they really wanted to hear you say that you use printf debugging. That's what they were looking for. So
and I still use a lot. Actually, I think it's very. Well, it's
effective. Yeah, I think it's fast to do for lots
very
of things.
Effective. It's very effective. That's the word. It's very effective.
Yeah. No, that's great to hear as well. They were.
I was going to comment that at the moment I start a small project with a friend, and it's a video game for Sega Genesis Mega Drive.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and you basically only have printf there.
Yeah,
So
that's your only option, right? That makes sense.
yeah.
This was a good question. So my guess, I'm gonna say my guess first. So someone's wondering what's the story behind your GitHub profile picture and the profile picture you use other places. My
Ah,
guess is that you made it in Raylib.
not really.
Oh, okay, all right. So what's the story?
Well, I made it, yeah, because technically I'm not a programmer. Technically, I studied to be a 3D animator.
Oh,
Okay, and that's what I wanted to do, and I did a lot of modeling, rigging, skinning, animation,
yeah,
and I took several courses in the past. And in one of those courses, I need a model for the animations, and I created a short animation. And actually, that profile picture was from a model I created for animations. And actually, I did a short animation with that model. Yeah, I just took that picture from it's a keyframe from the animation, and I keep it in a way like to remember that I wanted to be a 3D
yeah,
animator, and I don't know how I end up coding so much.
yeah. Okay, this one seems like someone knows something that I don't know. They asked, "Tell us about your agricultural skills."
Someone knows. Okay. Okay. I think I've mentioned it before, sometime probably in the Raylib Discord, that in my hometown I got a piece of land with some olive trees that I take care of. And once a year or so, I go to pick up the olives and take them to the mill and make olive oil. That's
Wow.
it. Yeah, and I take care of the trees, and once every month or once every sometime I go to the land and I check the trees
Yeah.
and I prune them, and I do some work in there to keep everything working to make olive oil. That's it.
You should sell a limited edition Raylib official olive oil.
That would be amazing.
The very expensive, handcrafted by Ray himself.
Actually, it is. Actually, it is. It is very expensive, and it's not handcrafted
Yeah,
because it's done in the mill,
yeah,
but it's a super limited edition because I cannot make that much.
yeah. That would be funny. No, cool. So I don't know if you have. I think maybe sort of a fun last question, unless you have anything else that you wanted to talk about. I'd be interested just to hear a little bit more from you about sort of this transition from being an artist animator to writing a library that tons of programmers really like and respect. Like, what was step one?
Um,
And then
I, I, I don't know. I think it's a life.
yeah,
I studied to be 3D animator. Well, I actually studied electronic engineering as a career in university. But after that, I wanted to be 3D animator for video games, and I took some courses and I took a master degree, and I tried to focus on that aspect of game development. But when I got my diploma and everything, I got a job at EA, at Electronic Arts. And then there I started doing a lot of different things, but 3D animation. Mostly, I was in localization, I was mostly in the engineering team, and I was doing a lot of databases, a lot of organization. And then I start also creating tools, and probably in those years in Electronic Arts, I start moving a bit to the programming side. And after that, I also created my own company. I published several games that didn't work, and it was only me at that moment, and I had to do everything. So I
yeah,
did the art, I did the programming. So I keep coding.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I started studying. And I start teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I start teaching programming. That's it. So
Yeah.
I think it was kind of a transition around 6 years or something
Yeah.
like that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thanks a bunch for coming out and chatting about Raylib.
Thanks to you,
Stu
too.
in the chat will be spamming the link again, hopefully, for how to contribute, for people to contribute to Raylib's future development. I've been a big fan, and happy to be able to have you here and chat about it. And it was a lot of fun trying out Raylib, and my chat has been. They've been blaming me and saying you're getting too distracted on other projects. You said you were going to make a game. I'm still going to make a game with Raylib and OCaml. I just got distracted writing my own custom entity component system as well. Okay, so it's like, okay, we're going to make a game. So what are we going to do? Well, we pick a library, Raylib. Oh, that was easy. Okay, we're going to do an OCaml because that'd be fun. Okay, well, now what do we need to do? We need to build an entity component system. Okay, well, I'm going to build one because that seems fun. And now we're distracted. So anyways, we're going to build
you
a
always
Raylib
have
game.
to build things. You always will be building things.
Yes,
always.
Just one. We're building foundation. As my wife loves the phrase, it's an investment. So that's what I always tell myself too. It's an investment, guys. I'm just sharpening my axe, So so anyways, thanks a bunch for coming on, and it was really fun getting to chat with you. And maybe if you've got another big release of Raylib sometime in the future, send me a message. We'll come and talk about bigger release or something. So that would be really fun.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
It was really a pleasure to be here, and I really had a very good time. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. See ya. Thank you.
Bye.
Nice chat. That was fun. Bye, YouTube. Well, YouTube chat's still going to be here, but this is the end of the YouTube video. If you liked the video, you can subscribe down below, but more importantly than subscribing, click the description. Go to contributions. You can send them $1. Be really cool. Bye.